Welcome to Module 10, Basic Router Configuration. Up until this point, you have just concerned yourself with PCs and switches and how they interact. Well, now the question is, how do I get to another network? How do I get to the internet? How do I get to another subnet, which we'll get into a totally different subject later. So I'm going to make 3 videos for this session or this module. One on just initial router settings, and you're going to find that the router settings are almost identical to what you did in switch. So it should be relatively simple. You know, the host name, enable passwords, login passwords, all that stuff is the same. Then I'll go into configuring interfaces and what does it take, because in the switch, when you powered it on, every port came live. Not the same for a router. You actually have to tell it to go on. So we'll talk about a little about that. And then configuring the default gateway. The question is, how does the router know that there's another network out there? And if it doesn't know where the network is, how does it pass the information on? So those are the 3 videos I'm going to try to make, and we'll go from there. Hope it helps. Now, as you can tell, the router setup here is basically the same. Configure the host name, secure the privilege exec, set a console password, make sure people can't log in remotely by switching to secure shell if need be. Secure all the passwords with the encryption password and any banner information. So all of that stuff should look the same. You get in, you do enable, configure terminal, and then all the same commands you did before. And of course the same copy and exec. So all of this stuff you've done in the switch. So the first lab should be relatively simple, since it should be a duplicate of what you've done on the switch. So here they're going to look at router 1, and they're going to configure name, rank, and serial number for this router. So you got enable, configure terminal, and then the first thing they did was change it to router 1. So of course, as with the switch, what happened? The prompt changed to the new name. Started with router. Once you change the name, it went to R1. The same thing you saw as in the switch. The same process for enabling, do an enable secret, your line consoles, up all the VTYs, all of this stuff is identical to what you did with the switch. So I don't want to make it any harder than it is. It's identical. Cisco was very consistent between switches and routers, how the iOS functions. Message of the day. And of course, what do you got to do? Save running configuration to the startup configuration. And you do that with the running, copy run start or running config to startup config. That way, the next time you start up your router, you end up having the same post. So what I would do is I'd actually try this out on the syntax checker just to make sure you got the syntax right, because you're going to need it when we do the first packet tracer lab 10.1.4. And that's just doing the same thing we just saw. So basic router configuration, piece of cake. That first lab should be a done deal. And that's the end of this first lesson. We're going to go over to router interfaces, so hold on tight.